savior. The dudes following us definitely wanted to be black, or their idea of black, or Puerto Rican or Latino or anything but white, which is what they were. When Jay and I finally noticed them, we paused and dabbed our brows and sipped vitamin waters. They're like a mirage, Jay said, the gleaming white posse slowly closing the gap between us and them. The bright sun played tricks, and from across the endless strip mall parking lots, it appeared that we were being stalked by a glowing white octopus. All arms, gesticulating angrily, bouncing baseball cap brims, throwing wild shadows. And who wears a hoodie in this heat? Every so often, we'd hear the white octopus shout some garbled words, followed by, "Biatch!" Jay and I had been trudging into the sun all afternoon, taking turns carrying the heavy cast-iron crucifix he just bought from a religious salvage warehouse. The cross was the size of a pizza box, but weighed a ton. The Hungarian importer assured us that all his items were obtained legally from Eastern European cemeteries and churches, but the way he smiled when he said it felt like a dare. The flat black spray paint job on the cross began sticking to my sweaty arms. "Your turn," I said as I placed the thing to Jay's tattooed hands. He'd always saved these types of adventures for my visits. If he had a car, or if he knew how to drive, these would be mundane errands. But since Jay was always on foot, errands morphed into epic journeys. "Motherfucker!" yelled the white octopus. I've known Jay since kindergarten. I was standing next to him in the water fountain line right after morning recess when Daniel Kruger burst through the front doors, gloriously tardy as always, and shouted, "The space shuttle's exploded! The Challenger blew up!" Jay broke down crying, was brought to the nurse's office, and was eventually sent home for the day. He rarely stepped into a motor vehicle since then, distrusts all machinery. Never even learned to drive. For a while, before dropping out of college, he wanted to be a mechanical engineer. "I would have laid my body on the launch pad if I knew those O-rings would fail," he drunkenly said one night. "Those engineers knew. I've seen the reports, and they did nothing." A bottle smashed behind us. We looked back to see the posse laughing and jumping around. There were 7 of them now. One grabbed his crotch and yelled something to us. We walked faster. I was getting nervous, glancing back as we passed yet another rundown big box store. 7 wannabe thugs versus 2 vegans with faux leather boots didn't have a good outcome from my perspective. Jay seemed unfazed. They smacked their fists into their palms, the heat stoking their anger. When one stopped to pantomime kicking a prone body on the asphalt, the others joined in. "Faggots!" one yelled. This was more serious than I thought. I left suburbia 20 years ago and have taken for granted the fact that most city violence is business-related. Debts unpaid or product due. Out here, boredom seemed like the main motive for most actions. As I sped up even faster, calculating how many blocks the train station was, which would get us back to Jay's, he slowed and fell behind. The thugs strutted hard now, quieting down and growing focused and intense. I began trotting at a decent clip, trying to conceal my jog by keeping my shoulders very stiff. My legs going double time, while my upper body looked cool and collected. At least in theory, that's how I looked. Jay slowed to a crawl. "Jay!" I yelled. He was midway between myself and the white octopus, barely walking now, holding the crucifix with one hand and unbuttoning his shirt with the other. His face looked almost serene. I stopped running and stood there, my head wanting to run toward him, but my feet cement. As the thugs screamed insults and threats and edged closer, Jay slowly trudged along, removing one piece of clothing at a time, until he was completely naked in the middle of an abandoned Circuit City parking lot. Iron crucifix in one hand, the other open and facing the sky. The thugs fell silent and stopped and looked confused and almost afraid as they veered off to the right and quickly walked away. Jay flashed me a huge grin, shook his head and retrieved his clothes. I carried the iron crucifix for him the rest of the way back.